Hey guys, sorry for the sudden cutout. This is part two. I was just getting into the beam boomerangs. Um, so yeah, let's get to that. The beam boomerangs. Let's show the two of them. Watch the first one, the first part for all the details and stuff. But let's put the actual blades in. Now on the 1 to 100th, you do have a slight little conundrum. You can't do the alternate, like the alternates with the big beam boomerang or the little beam dagger, because the pegs. If you look, this peg has an angle to it, and that's what makes it a beam saber. This peg is straight, and so it goes in at an angle, and that makes it a beam boomerang. I'm actually gonna raise the camera so you can see a little better. You can see the peg is straight. So you can't do a beam dagger with these, but you do have, again, really nicely detailed beams, just like the beam sabers. Whereas the 1 to 100, the 1 to 144th beams are just meh. I mean, they're nice. They are shiny. They do have sparkles in them, though, which is a little plus to it, but that'll come in a little bit. The reason they're sparkly will come in a little bit. But yeah, you can also, the one thing that the beam boomerangs have that the others don't is they can do a little dagger, I guess. So if you wanted to have two beam sabers slash beam daggers, you could do it that way. But you don't get two beam sabers in the 1 to 100th, or the 1 to 144th, sorry. So that's a disappointment. Now, I like these shoulder mounted beam weapons better. I'm going to call them the shoulder mounted beam weapons because they do both beam sabers and boomerangs. I'll put them back in. The 1 to 100th is much tighter, however, that may be because I painted the black on there. And I did do it in black for some reason, I don't know why. I should have done it in gray, but hey. I wasn't really thinking. Now, let's get some extra hands in here to do the beam shields. Now, I'm going to bring in both beam shields for a sec to show you. Whereas the 1 to 144th, again, has a lot more sleek design. This one has a lot more detail in the beam shield. This one just sort of looks more anime accurate, I guess. This one looks like a real piece of beam weaponry. I'm guessing in the anime they probably didn't have that much detail, so the 1 to 144th is probably a little more anime accurate. So that's, I guess, a plus to it. But I gotta say I like the 1 to 100th better. Now let's go into the locking mechanism. You have to remove the black part, the yellow part on both. I did paint the undersides black on the 1 to 144th this time. But then you can just attach this and plug it in. I do believe you can do it both ways with the 1 to 144th. Let me try it the other way. No, you can only do it the one way. Yeah, it's only one way. The peg is slightly teardropped so that you can only do it the way that he actually does it. And then you attach this piece in through there. And it's actually slightly higher, which is more accurate to the way that Destiny actually does it. So I have to give the beam shield to the 1 to 144th. However, the 1 to 100th still is great. It's still a great connection. This one, the shield itself falls. The shield and the little jewel themselves like to fall out sometimes. Of course, it won't now. It'll be perfectly solid in there. And the jewel actually gets stuck a lot more. But yeah, the jewel actually does fall out quite a bit with the 1 to 144th scale. But that's good for getting it out, because all you have to do is knock it against the table. Actually, and now it's solid in there because I'm reviewing. But yeah, it is a little looser. You can pull it out a little easier. I mean, it does have a nice connection, but it didn't before I superglued the peg. I superglued the peg on the shield because I did have it displayed with the beam shield for a few days. But yeah, the thing is, once you knock that back peg, there, it just sort of drops out. If you see, watch, just sort of like a little contact and then boom. It is a little looser. Trust me. I can't get it to just pop out on camera, of course, but it does. It has popped out on me, and I almost lost one of the little gems. But I found it later. It was on the shelf. It was right by the feet of the Katsuki, which is why I didn't notice it initially. But yeah, so let's go into the 1 to 100th. Now, this one lacks one thing that the 1 to 144th has. Here's the shield. I've already put the jewel through it. Now, if you look at the peg on the back, the peg is actually part of the original jewel, which is accurate in a way, because it did extend from the actual jewel. But the thing is, this one is a much more solid fit. I mean, it's harder to get it off. You could get it off easy, but you have to sort of like pull it and then bend it forward a little. It does stay on there pretty well. It's not coming off at any point in time. And the gem is obviously more secure because it's actually stuck all the way through there instead of stuck into it. And I think my problems on the 1 to 144th may have stemmed from the fact that I never wanted to jam it all the way down, jam the gem all the way down into there because I never wanted to get it stuck. I couldn't get it out the first time I did it. I actually had to shave down a bit of the peg in order to get it, like shave down a bit of the hole, like take out a little of the hole by running a beam saber through it and just sort of using friction to shave it down a bit. Now I'm going to go into the backpacks. First of all, let's look at the mounting mechanisms. This one has this shrimpy little peg that you could pop off at a drop of a hat. This one has this big square peg. Now, if you want to display it without the backpack, from the back, the smaller one looks much better. However, from the front, from a standpoint, if you have the backpack on, from the standpoint of having the backpack already attached, that's the better way to say that, the 1 to 100th, you're not having that backpack fall off at all, ever. I mean, you could have it on there for... You could throw this thing across the room, and I swear the backpack would not come off. The weapons may drop off. The head may smash against the wall. That backpack connector will not go. It will never go. And here's another thing. If you look, that black part just dropped off. They're not as secure on the 1 to 144th as they are on the 1 to 100th. Parts generally, but the wings are actually the selling point of the 1 to 144th. But I'm going to get to that last. Let's pop out the swords, and let's do those. Now, in my opinion, the 1 to 100th again takes the cake because I'm going to unfold the sword. I'll show you the stored modes first. Here we go. Here are the stored modes. You can already see the difference in the 1 to 100th. I'm going to get a little better lighting here. There, now you can see the gray. That's gray in there instead of blue. And this is just a solid blue sword, which I like. I like the gray in there in the 1 to 100th. It gives it a little more accuracy to the show. And I don't have that color paint. That's off-white. It's not white. I could use white, but whatever. Let's get in the blades. Now, for the 1 to 144th, you get this. It's a straight little blade. It's sort of shrimpy. It's, again, really bland. Again, you suffer from... The 1 to 100th has a really nice sort of like... It looks like somebody's been chewing on the 1 to 144th on this one. Because it is just sort of like a beam, sort of like a rippling beam of plasma, whereas the 1 to 144th is more just sort of standard state. Like the beam is straight. Now, I just noticed I didn't completely cut this peg. The way they connect is also a bit key on the 1 to 100th. They connected this beam by 2 parts in the back of the beam to the sprue. This one was connected by the end, by this end and a part in the back. So this peg was perfect, but this one you had to trim up, and I just noticed there was a little more so it wouldn't fit perfectly, which would be a knock against it if I did it that way. Now let's pull out the little sword connectors here. These here. Now let's unfold this one too. Now, the 1 to 144th is a little harder to unfold these, but the 1 to 100th solved that. And that's usually the case with unfolding parts on sword weapons and cannon weapons for that matter, but yeah. So if you trim the 1 to 144th one perfect, you can sometimes get it to lock in perfectly. However, a tiny little smack from the side and it'll just fall out. I'll demonstrate that once I get the 1 to 100th in. The 1 to 100th, you actually have to bow it out and let it snap into this top one. Whereas in the 1 to 144th one, this part down here, you just push this to the side and then it just sort of shifts out, which is a bit of a disappointment because it means it falls out. However, the beam does have sparkles in it. Some of you may have guessed already why. Oh, and you do get a little more detail at the end cap of the sword. There's white on this one where there isn't on this one. But that's not too terribly out there. They both have the red stickers for the triangles. However, I like the 1 to 100ths better because they're a little flatter, and they have that little black line on there. You barely see it. There's a black line in that sticker. I can't hold it stationary enough. Yeah. My hands do tremble from occasions when I'm cold. And my hands get cold rather easily. I don't know why. I don't know. It may be something medical, but I don't think it's serious. Don't worry about it. Don't think that I'm going to die from it. I'm fine. Now let's get into the cannons. The cannon is a really hard thing to trump because they are really basic. Now, the scopes, the 1 to 100th looks better, but that's just because I used my scope marker on it. I used the blue scope marker. You don't get scope stickers for either, so that's kind of a bummer. But anyway, let's fold them out. There you go. Color differences. You do get the triangles for both. However, you do get a red piece at the back. In my opinion, on the 1 to 144th, those two little circles are rather smushed together. On this one, they've got a little more space in between them. And same with the lines, they're kind of squished together. But yeah, that's not a huge deal. It also lacks a little detail like that circle on the side of the scope. Yeah. Now the handles are where the 1 to 100th really shines in this respect. This handle is a little loose when you turn it sideways. Like it comes out a little too easily. However, the 1 to 100th sort of seem to solve that problem. Again, which is a theme for the bigger scales. You do get a lot less problems with little parts that move around. This one, the peg is slightly longer and actually scrapes up against the other side if you're not careful. But yeah. And it's a lot tighter in there. So it stays a lot better. Now, with both, you can get the peg underneath the hand, which is good. Oh, another thing. With the backpack pieces, the ones on the 1 to 144th attached to a polycap. The 1 to 100th is a normal plastic part with an ABS plastic connector in there. And I'm actually glad I knocked the sword one out, or else I wouldn't have remembered to show you that. But plastic on plastic is generally a stronger connection. Plastic on polycap, in this situation, I mean, I can just maneuver these a little and try to get it under the arm for the cannon or something, and I'm going to get it to... because it does move and it's a lot stiffer, but it does pop off quite easily sometimes. It's not terribly bad, but these polycap ball joints have been known to fail. Now, for the only part, in my opinion, that the 1 to 144th can take the victory fully on, the wings. Now, if you look at the 1 to 100th, they do have nice gray parts in there, which the 1 to 144th, and if you look, the thrusters are detailed. They're actually thrusters in there. Whereas this one just has 3 blocks in there. there are no thruster outlines